everybody. We're back today with Sarah France of Solar Cross Astrology for the third video about the Age of Aquarius specifically. I want to start out with the disclaimer though again that anything that is said about Aquarius energy here is not meant as a dig at anybody that has a lot of Aquarius in their chart. There is a light and a shadow, two sign energy, right? And here we're talking about astrological ages. This isn't like this shouldn't be applied personally, if you will. This is long spans of time. and also, this is, we are just fucking with shit here. Like, we did do a lot of research. We have looked into stuff, but these really are theories, ideas. We are not trying to say that we are universally correct in anything that will come out in this video. So if anybody has anything they want to add, feel free to add it below in the comments. But we're not looking to get into any arguments or hear any nasty opinions. That kind of bitch fest needs to be done somewhere else. I'm not trying to get into all that. So, and I don't think you are either. So, but obviously if you have any thoughts to add on or whatever, feel free to leave them in the comments below. So I guess we'll start out with the Age of Aquarius. Makes me want to listen to the song. I was actually listening to that song into this shit. I love the part when Let the Sunshine In starts. That's like my favorite part of the song.
It's a great song. I love that song.
It is a good song. It really is.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about like what this might look like?
Well, I think we've definitely seen thus far some hints of where this is going. I have not done an extensive amount of research into the transits, like well into the future, looking at kind of like how some of the things that are coming up today might be manifesting later on down the road. But I do think that there are some definite signposts that we can look towards in order to understand a bit more about where this is going, like you say. And I think that we were planning on kind of coming at this from the same angle that we did the last video, which was on the Age of Pisces, which is looking at the ages through the lens of how planets are functioning in certain signs, like whether they have their exaltation or their domicile, their fall or their detriment. And we had brought up a bunch of different planets that can be involved in Aquarius in that way. So maybe before we get there, do we want to define Aquarius as a sign? Maybe we can pull one of those cards again. There you go.
Aquarius is the card for it. So there are lots of keywords on that card. What comes to mind for you first when you think of Aquarius energy? What pops in first?
I think of the future of humanity.
Yeah.
That's what I think of when I think of Aquarius. And this can be looked at, I think, from multiple different angles. Like on the one hand, this can be talking about the future of humanity from like a sociocultural perspective, or a legislative perspective, a structural perspective, and also like a technological perspective, which is, I definitely, when I think Aquarius and Uranus, I think anything futuristic, anything sci-fi, virtual reality, space travel, extraterrestrials. Like this is all what I think of when I think Aquarius.
AI also.
Yeah.
I think of all of that for sure. Also groups.
Yep.
Collective stuff. for sure. Yeah, and also liberation.
Yeah. Yep.
That's another one that usually pops into my mind first with Aquarius too.
Yeah, I think that like this idea of freedom or and liberation can be confused sometimes. Like freedom is definitely a very much a Jupiterian, Sagittarian word. This idea of like what is it? What is like the first sentence in the Declaration of Independence? Or there's something about the right to pursue freedom.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah, like that's very Jupiterian, very Sagittarian in my eyes. But then talking about liberation is contingent upon there being a structure that you are breaking out of, right? Limits that you are breaking out of. And this is very much what like the combination of your Uranus and Saturn gives to Aquarius.
Yes. And I was also going to say the beginning of that, we the people.
Yeah.
Is very is very Aquarian, that just that phrase. There is something kind of even socialist about it slightly. I know that that's not how they meant it, but when I think about Aquarius energy, I'm not trying to call all Aquarius socialists or anything like that, but I do think of that notion of kind of socialism, if you will. So
yeah, that's a really good segue, I think, into something that we were talking about before filming, which is like, I think you were saying like the death of the individual.
Yes. Yes. With the sun is in detriment in Aquarius, and there does seem like there, and I don't know how I feel about this, to be quite, I don't know how I feel about this. I guess it depends on how it goes, but it does seem like there could be Aquarius is just, it's very collective focused, right? It is, and there's not always as much room for the individual as an individual. There's not as much, I want to be careful how I say this. Sometimes it doesn't feel like with this energy, there's as much honoring of that, but yet there can be, there can be. But I think sometimes Aquarius energy is interesting, and I'm not ragging on it because I really do love Aquarius energy. So I'm not shit talking here. I really do love it. But Aquarius energy can do this thing where it does. I've noticed that, and just in general, it'll do this. Aquarius energy wants to be like all inclusive, like all, it does, right? And I think that it can be. I think that Aquarius energy can function that way, and it can be all inclusive for everybody, literally for everybody. But then sometimes I think Aquarius energy can be all inclusive for people that fit what they're including. Does that make sense? Like
it's moral code, like it's moral code and its value systems.
Yes. And yes. So while it can be inclusive in this way, if rather than what I think the highest vibration of Aquarius energy wants to do, which is to include literally everybody, right? Regardless, Aquarius energy can kind of fracture off and I almost feel like that's what we see today. And I think that some of this could be growing pains, right? With moving into Aquarius energy. But yeah, I do feel like at the highest vibration, Aquarius energy wants everybody included. Everybody is, and I think that we can get there.
Yeah.
And perhaps there does kind of have to be a death of the individual for that to happen.
Yeah, when you talk about the death of the individual, I think of a few different things. It's such an interesting concept to consider. On the one hand, I think about like this collective approach to life that Aquarius has that you were talking about, and thinking about the collective experience of humanity. On the one hand, I think that we have seen over the course of specifically the last few decades, so much of this Aquarian push to accept social outliers, right? And to normalize what was once considered social outliers.
Yeah.
And, we see this with all of the stuff related to, it beginning with, for example, decriminalizing homosexuality. It used to be criminal, and like the transition from decriminalization and then legalizing gay marriage, and then now the movement with inclusive pronouns, and also everything with the LGBTQ plus community, like all of this inclusion. I think this is, I would say, an Aquarian influence being pushed on society right now on a positive level. On a negative level, I do see what you're talking about with like the death of the individual and this mob mentality, and like this self-righteous identification with groups or philosophies, which might not even really be based in, your own research and understanding, but just that urge to jump on the bandwagon and have strength in numbers.
Yes. And I think we see that all over the place, regardless of, we could be talking about literally anything. And I think that we see this, and I think they are growing pains. I think that they are, because while all of these groups are rising up, and I think it's wonderful. Don't get me. I do think that it's wonderful, but ultimately, everybody has to be included in an organic way, in a natural way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess that, I hope so much that we get there, and I would love to see that in my lifetime.
Yeah.
that particular thing I would love to see in my lifetime. Just I don't know if I will get to, but I hope that I do, because I think that we all can do it. Where, or rather, learning how to be like, okay, so they're different than me, but they're still human.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wish that we would refer to ourselves as humans, just humans.
Right.
Humans on planet Earth, because that really is that. I mean, that really is what we are. We are much more similar than we are, dissimilar on the whole.
I think that I want to bring it back to something that you had mentioned earlier, as far as like Aquarius having maybe this tendency sometimes to be extremely inclusive, but conditionally so. And I know that this is something that might be a bit controversial, but I think it's worth bringing up. This idea of, I can't even remember what people are calling it, but like these social grading systems.
Oh, social credit. Is that what you're?
Social credit. Yeah. And it's like, I definitely do see that as kind of one of these more negative manifestations of that tendency of Aquarius. It's like, we'll give you everything and we'll include you, but you have to comply with these things. And if you don't, you'll be, yeah. And if you don't, you'll be, you know, you'll be, what's the word? Ostracized.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And that is something that people are talking about, coming about. Yeah. And China already has that, right?
China already has it. I would have to do more research into this, but I did see a video the other day about a woman in Canada talking about something that had happened recently with the Canadian government now gaining access to people's personal resources and finances. And if, you don't like, yeah, it was like some really shady shit even happening in Canada.
Are you also talking about the thing with the truckers?
Oh, what happened with the truckers?
The truckers, I guess the ones that, you know what I'm talking about, the Canadian truckers.
No.
Well, they were protesting, and essentially anybody that that was caught having done that, I could be wrong about this. Take this, you might want to look into this on your own. But
okay.
they were seizing their bank accounts.
Yeah, I think this is what she was talking about. She was saying that like people were losing access to their assets and finance and their financial resources if they were doing something that the government had deemed inappropriate or illegal or, just distasteful. And like this was the first time that the Canadian government had ever taken a step in that direction. And it is kind of this fine line to cross, because once you cross it, it's like, where does it go from here?
Yeah, it's like, it really is like opening Pandora's box.
Yes.
And it's also begs into the question, what is untasteful for one person may not be untasteful. You know what I mean? That's really a matter of perception and a matter of opinion, and but yeah, the hive mind thing can be an issue with this energy, and what you're talking about does kind of fit into it. It doesn't have to be that way. I actually do think that we can get to a place with Aquarius energy in the future, not right now, but in the future, after these growing pains are done. I'm hopeful that we can get to a place where the individual, there's not actually a death to the individual. The individual is still able to thrive and be included regardless of any, you know what I mean? I'm hoping that.
Right. Yeah, I'm hoping so too, because I think this is a word I mentioned earlier, but this feeling of being ostracized, that's definitely an Aquarius keyword.
Yes.
And I think that, hopefully, maybe death of the individual really just means, death to this idea that they are any different than I am on a fundamental level. Because, Aquarius really does aim to say, like you were saying earlier, we're all human, and by nature of the fact that we exist here and we're all breathing here on this planet, we have a right to dignity and respect.
Absolutely. And I think if any sign can do this, it is Aquarius. Like if this can be done under any sign, it is Aquarius that this can be done under.
Yeah, I mean, like if anybody watching has ever spent time with somebody who has a really high functioning Aquarius energy, it's so beautiful, because it is just so comforting. You really do feel like you can be your weird and outlandish self, and they don't give a fuck.
No, they don't. And that is something, like that at the highest vibe, they really are. They're lovely people to be around, like because you can be weird, you can be different, you can be come as you are kind of thing, whatever, however that is. And they really are. What else are you thinking about in terms of?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe we can quickly talk about Saturn and Aquarius and maybe how Saturn will be excelling throughout this age, and how it has been excelling in certain Aquarian ways over the last few decades as we make this transition, and then maybe finishing off on Uranus.
Okay.
And as co-ruler of Aquarius, and looking at Uranus's fall in Taurus or detriment in Taurus. Yeah, because I think that has some important connotations with this whole climate change bit. But yeah, what do you think of when you think Saturn and Aquarius?
I think of moving forward from like limitations,
Mm-hmm.
breaking out of limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Those are kind of the first things that come to mind first.
Yeah. I would agree. I think that to take that thought even a step farther, I definitely do foresee that if there is any moment in history where I feel like the energy is pushing humanity to break free from even the limitations of our planet or our solar system, it's very much at this time. I feel like the energies are pushing us in that direction. And also, Saturn rules over structure and the universe. And so I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that maybe over the next 2,000 years, astrology, which is related to the sign of Aquarius, and also to the planet Saturn, because astrology really is just talking about the structure of the cosmos, right? Like the structure of the consciousness of the cosmos.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that maybe Saturn will be excelling in Aquarius during this time by helping to standardize and structure and accept astrology into society in a way that hasn't been done before.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I'm hoping that that's maybe one way, that because I can see Saturn and Aquarius being pushed to think outside the box in order to understand the structure of our material world. And I'm hoping that naturally, humanity will be pushed back into like an astrological frame of reference, because at the end of the day, it's been, a tried and true framework.
Yes, it has for
thousands of years.
Yeah, for real, for thousands of years. And I also, when I think of Saturn and Aquarius, I also think of like building things up in a more progressive way.
Mm-hmm.
Or in a different way. So maybe with what you're talking about with astrology, maybe it's because astrology was, obviously I take what I do seriously. I know you take what you do seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But astrology on the whole is not taken as seriously as I think it should be. Though it was a long time ago, right? No. So maybe we build that back.
Yeah.
Again, in a different way this time, one that is able to last. Yeah. And to outlast any shit thrown at it from any of the communities that want to throw shit at it. You know what I mean? Maybe.
I really hope so, because I do think that I've always said that if astronomers and astrologers could get together and take each other seriously and respect one another equally and respect one another's frameworks equally, like the discoveries that could be made about the cosmos and our purpose, where we come from, the mechanics of it all. Like, I think that these discoveries would be so valuable to society. if people would be willing to, take it seriously. And yeah, just, Saturn and Aquarius, just like you said, like restructuring astrology in a way that keeps it around, and keeps it respected in the way that it really should be.
Yeah.
Because I think that, you know as I do, that the history of astrology has been so mutilated, for lack of a better word, over the last few hundred years, that people have no idea that astrology used to be the height of academia.
Yeah, it was.
No?
And that, yes, a lot of people don't know that, and they should.
I know everybody, it's unfortunate that now we're at a place where I think now we're seeing a revival, definitely,
Yes.
a definite revival of astrology. And, I think that I wonder sometimes if maybe even the discovery of, and like the translation of all of the traditional documents, like in the Hellenistic tradition, is kind of speaking to the shift into the Age of Aquarius.
I could see how that could definitely play in for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, hopefully that'll be a positive change.
Okay.
And then I guess maybe if we want to talk about Uranus and Taurus.
Yeah.
And
where it's in fall in Taurus.
Right.
Uranus is a catalyst for change, and it can also be chaotic. There's a chaos too. So there's a purposeful chaos. There's a purpose for it.
Yeah.
But there is chaos. There is upheaval. Taurus energy isn't real big into that.
Mm-hmm.
Taurus energy is pretty steady. It wants to be secure. It wants to survive. Survival,
right.
So, it definitely makes me think that some things won't survive.
Yeah.
For sure. Though I'm inclined to think the things that won't, there's probably a reason for it, but it does make me think that the Age of Aquarius, there is something perhaps about survival here.
Yeah.
And even with Saturn, like you were just talking about Saturn and Aquarius, Saturn is in fall in Aries, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both Aries and Taurus energy are more individual focused, if you will,
and very survival based.
Yeah.
Like
yes. So that's another thing that made me think, like, death of the individual also.
Yeah.
So there's some also playing in.
Like maybe we won't really have the freedom anymore to be so wrapped up in our own personal stories, because we're having to focus more on the collective experience, which I think is something we got a taste of with the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius.
Yes.
At the beginning of COVID.
Yes.
I think that is a taste of maybe this larger energy that will be experienced over the Age of Aquarius. I know, at least in my lifetime and in the lifetime of a lot of people who maybe, I know, like older generations who had maybe lived through, like, for example, the World Wars.
Uh-huh.
They had gone through something where collectively the entire world had been flipped on its head. But I think for the majority of people alive today, what we experienced with COVID was like the first time that we've seen something like at such a large scale that's affected literally everyone worldwide. And I think it is a common sentiment between people that it was the first time in their life where they weren't thinking about themselves,
Yeah.
Like it was impossible to think about your own personal drama when all of this was going on.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And if we think of like personal drama, what sign that would be associated with that, I definitely think of Leo. So I love Leo. I love Leo. But yeah, like this idea of being absorbed in your personal narrative, very Leo, opposite Aquarius.
Yes, yes, it is.
And then yeah, Uranus and Taurus. Taurus, I definitely think of, anytime I think of the climate and the natural world, Taurus,
Yeah, Mother Earth.
Mother Earth. So Uranus and Taurus definitely bring change to the climate and change to the relationship that the human race will have with Mother Earth.
Yes.
And I think that unfortunately, things may get worse before they get better, but I am hoping that, just as much as Uranus can come in and, for lack of a better word, fuck shit up, it can also give ingenious breakthroughs.
Yeah, totally.
And so I'm hoping that, because we're forced to, we might be having ingenious breakthroughs about how to better work with and cohabitate with the natural world.
Yeah, and that's very possible, because our planet is, it is changing. I've seen a bunch of different theories proposed as to how and why, and but it's, regardless of how and what, it is changing.
Yeah.
And yeah, Uranus and Taurus could also give us new ways to survive, different ways to survive, even,
Yeah.
to feel secure. And that might look very different than how we feel secure now on this planet. It might be that in time we have to move inland more, right?
Yeah.
Things of that nature. But yeah, I definitely think there will be some change, not only on the planet, but definitely on how we live on the planet, how we
Have you ever read Ishmael?
I don't I don't think so.
No, okay, hold on. Excuse me, I'm just going to reference the author's name. I can't believe I'm forgetting it. But I think that for anybody who has read it, it is by Daniel Quinn. Daniel Quinn is the name of the author for anybody who's interested. Ishmael is the story that basically talks about a young man who starts studying with a gorilla, who this gorilla has learned how to read and write in English and communicate with humans. And he has put out an announcement in the local paper saying that he's looking for students. And so this young man goes to the gorilla and they start working together. And essentially what this gorilla, whose name is Ishmael, is doing is he's teaching this young man about how the animal kingdom perceives the human being and perceives the way that the human being is treating the planet.
Do they perceive us like a bunch of assholes?
Yeah, essentially. It's not a lighthearted book. It's not a feel-good book. It definitely makes your skin crawl at points, because you realize fuck, we are, collectively out of our minds, in regards to the way that culture teaches us about our place in the natural world. Modern Western culture has moved in this direction where, we're learning we have begun to believe over the course of the last few thousand years that the world was placed here for the human being to take advantage of. And that's been our downfall. We're not here to take advantage of it. We're actually here to cohabitate and take care of, this planet. And so I think that Uranus and Taurus during the Age of Aquarius is really going to be forcing us to re-examine
Yeah. And
that.
and that's not a, yeah, that's not a, might be a hard thing for us, but I don't think it's a bad thing because
No, not at all.
yeah.
I think that it will radically change the way that the human being exists in the natural world, in comparison with what we're doing now. But I think that it has the potential to be much better than anything we're experiencing right now.
I think you're right about that. I do. Is there anything else you want to say about the Age of Aquarius?
I think there's a lot we could say, but I think that's, I think that's a good
Okay.
overview. I don't know if is there anything else that comes to your mind?
Nothing that well, we were talking about like no, not really. No, that's kind of deviates off topic. No, I'm sorry. That starts deviating some. No, I think I'm good for now.
Okay.
But okay, so I didn't say this in any of the other videos, I don't think, but thank you so much for coming on and talking with me about this and for even proposing the idea.
I am thrilled to be here, honestly. Like, this has been such a blast being able to talk to you and like just brainstorm and make all these connections. And, I'm really hoping that everybody enjoys this, because I think that it's a topic that maybe people get a little bit overwhelmed by, and that's why you don't see many people talking about it. But
yeah, it really is. It really is a topic, because I've thought about this before on my own, right? But it really is a topic, like you said, because it is so big and so it can be overwhelming. I almost think it is a topic that is better tag teamed.
Yeah.
Then,
I would agree.
But yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed all of this. So.
Yeah, me too. So thank you, Ellie, for your time and your platform, and thank you to everybody watching.
And if you want to share where you can be found again, you want to?
Yeah, so my business's name is Solar Cross Astrology. So you can find me at my website, solarcrossastrology.com, where I have all of my blog posts, articles, my services, contact information. Oh, I forgot to mention this in the other videos, but as of a few days ago, I was able to update a quick little guide to the lunar phases that I used to offer on my website. And it used to be this quick little thing, and I turned it into a 30-page guide to understanding the lunar phases and the natal chart and in transits, with chart examples and everything. So that's a free downloadable if anybody wants to go to my website and check that out. And then my Instagram is at Solar Cross Astrology as well.
Very cool. And I will put all of this information down below.
Great.
And I guess I will see all of y'all later on. Bye.